25,000 words. I am officially halfway through NaNoWriMo. I hit 25,000 words today. I'm like a hair over it. I think I'm at like 25,017 words or something like that. Second week was definitely more difficult than the first. I think that it marks the beginning of week 2 marks the beginning of the long haul, at least from what I noticed. I learned a lot this week. I think the most sort of glaring thing that I learned this week is just how important the routine is for me for reaching the word count. Week 1, I was really good about waking up every morning, writing the words first thing in the morning, and then moving on with my day, having it complete. This week, I had a lot more trouble with that, and I don't know why. I think it's because I had a couple late nights, and then kind of that affected my ability to get up at my normal time, to do the writing when I normally would. It just made everything a lot more difficult. What would happen is my alarm would go off at my normal time, and since I was up late, it would be way harder to get up, and I end up just like laying in bed scrolling for a while during the time that I would normally be writing. And since there's no one there telling me that I have to write, it's very much I don't know, it's something I'm doing because I want to do it. There's no grade for it, there's no deadline. Well, there is a deadline. The deadline is every day. Yeah, it becomes really, really easy to sort of let it slide on days where it's hard to get up in the morning. Me being stubborn and wanting to reach my goal, that means that I have to cram the words into somewhere in the rest of the day, which for me is a lot harder to do than just doing it in the morning. So there were a few days last week where it was just I had to find half an hour's a couple times throughout the day just to get in 150 words at a time. And that increased the effort it took exponentially. Just the act of sitting down to write is so much of the effort that it takes me to actually write, that doing that 5 or 6 times, even though I'm writing less per time, was just exhausting. And I couldn't really get into a flow without a solid chunk of time for writing. And it just did not work for me. And then the whole day I was stressed about it, trying to think about when am I actually gonna write, when's the next half an hour period of time gonna be, and will I have enough of these small chunks to make up for the missed time this morning. And it was stressful. It wasn't fun. I didn't get to read as much as I wanted to last week. So I was able to turn that around these past couple days now that so the weekend was a little more flexible because obviously there's more free time. And then yesterday and today I got back on my regular schedule, and by God, it feels so good. I think this is the first time that I can actually remember in my life where I feel rewarded for not procrastinating. I've heard countless times about how the reason I procrastinate is because every time I do, there's no punishment for it. I get in the habit of it. I feel rewarded for it. So I keep procrastinating. And I think, I don't know, just the experience of feeling the opposite of that, feeling rewarded for getting something done early, is so much, I don't know, it's a shock to my system because I've just never felt that before. It's not only did I know that I was off schedule and want to get back on schedule, but it felt good once I did. And that made all the difference. So I'm back on the schedule. I'm going to try and stay on the schedule as best as I can, because I genuinely don't want to be off it now. Now that I know what it feels like to be off of it, gosh, I just cannot go back to that. The writing itself feels like an absolute dumpster fire. I think I know what's going on. I'm following my plot. Like I did a plot beforehand. I'm following it for the most part. And I have something to write every time I sit down. Whether that's going to be in the final draft, who on earth knows? I was trying to explain what I was writing to Haley, my girlfriend, and she was asking like clarifying questions about it, and I just didn't have answers. And sort of doing that, like trying to piece it together in my head, was a pretty discouraging process because it doesn't make sense right now. And so just kind of like, that's a weird thing for me to accept. I'm used to things that, I'm used to making things that make sense. Like a YouTube video, I understand from start to finish. I don't have to worry about like the ugly phase where it's not cohesive. Like that, I feel like that just doesn't exist for videos or photos or drawings or any of the other art that I do. But with this, I mean, I feel like that's one of the ways in which this is a completely different beast. I have very little clue what's going on. Like, I know that I'm headed in the direction that I want to be going, but there are so many loose plot threads that I just did not plan for. I think that a big part of the editing process will be going through and identifying all the plot threads so I can decide which ones are relevant and which ones aren't, and get rid of the irrelevant ones and extend and make better the ones that I want to keep. I'm also having a crisis of the points of view. Right now I have it multi-POV. So there are 3 or 4 main characters who we see the story from their perspective at different points in the story. And I'm having second thoughts about that. I feel like a lot of the main characters have not like earned their spot as a main character. They're just not interesting enough to follow. So the ones that I am more confident in, that have sort of clear directions, I've been spending a lot more time with and trying to get their plot lines a lot further along. And I think once I have one character who has their story complete start to finish, I'll be able to go back and see, okay, here's where this character can fit into that plot line, and weave them into it along with their own, their own story, their own agency, their own goals and expectations. And I think that'll be easier once I kind of have a post for the beanstalk to grow up, so to speak. So these are just random thoughts. You can tell this is still sort of fresh on my brain, and this is me processing it out loud right now, speaking into the phone. I'm laying on my bed right now, looking at the ceiling. And yeah, it's so freaking hard to turn off the editor in my brain. But it's worked so far, and I have confidence that the editor will stay quiet for the foreseeable future. But every time I sort of stop to think about it like this, the editor comes back. I'm trying to think of ways to fix it, but I just can't do that yet. So far, the best way to reach that word count has been to just completely disregard this line of thinking that I'm doing right now, which is uncomfortable for me. I've never had to do that before. So I really see difficulty arising if I get to the end of the story, like sort of the planned ending, and there's still like a week left in the challenge, because I'm like roughly halfway through, no, like a little more than halfway through what I've planned out so far. Like my outline is kind of flying by, and I'm afraid that I'm going to reach the end before the end of the challenge, which means that I will have to sort of interrogate this line of reasoning and find things to go back and flesh out, which I think will be a way harder process than just kind of writing into the story. Like, as long as I have more story left to write, I'm confident. But yeah, once I hit that planned ending, who knows what's going to happen. I think that will be at the very least, another point of learning. I think I will sort of come face to face with challenges that I did not foresee, that I'm not even foreseeing right now. I am both excited and terrified to get to that point, but that's kind of where I see this headed. So this one's a little bit shorter than last week's vlog, only because I don't really want to think about this too much more, and I'm just going to sort of keep barreling ahead as best as I can. I think keeping in mind how short 50,000 words is to read is going to help me slow down in my writing a lot. I can take some more intentional moments to really dive into a description without worrying about slowing down the plot too much. So I think that might be a way to flesh out the setting, flesh out the characters, and prevent myself from hitting the end of the story too soon. And that might do me some good. So again, just an idea, subject to change approximately 50 times this week. And I'll check in with you once we're at, what'll it be? It'll be, after this week, roughly 35 to 40,000 words. So I'll see you then. Bye.